Hey everyone, Moms Against Medical Bullying. So I wanted to share from the book that I'm reading, Crucial Conversations. I made one video about it so far, and I just wanted to share as I go along. So my last video talked about the pool of shared ideas. Right? I picture it like a little, say, between whoever you're talking to or whatever group of people you're with, there's like a circle in the middle and everybody's ideas are going into this circle. It helps me to imagine it that way because sometimes I think that when people talk, we think that they're like directing things at us. But if I could visualize their words actually going into this circle, into this pool of shared meaning, then part of me feels like maybe I'll be a little bit less likely to become defensive or offended at something they might say. It could help me to, if I feel like my adrenaline is starting to go and my emotions are starting to run high, that I could step back and say, okay, they're sharing, into that pool of meaning, But anyways, when that starts to happen, when people's emotions start to run high, that could mean that the safety, that healthy dialogue is starting to drift off. And that safety, what this book says, safety is at risk. So when safety is at risk in a healthy dialogue, people retreat to either silence or violence. They either remove from the pool of shared meaning, or they force their ideas into the pool. Signs of silence. They have some signs here of people going into silence, which would be masking, which consists of understanding or selectively showing our true opinions through sarcasm, sugarcoating, and couching. Avoiding to talk about a topic, withdrawing, pulling out of the conversation altogether, and then some ways that people can go into violence is through controlling and coercing others to your way of thinking. Labeling, putting a label on people or ideas so we can dismiss them under a general stereotype or category. Attacking speaks for itself. You've moved from winning the argument to making the person suffer. Tactics include belittling and threatening, which is what we saw on the video that I posted of the woman's encounter with the sheriff. So, right, emotions ran high, and I feel like silence and violence do a dance together. So the healthy dialogue wasn't there. And I find that one person does silence, the other person does violence. It's like this dance, right? Well, if you have two people doing violence, then I think things really get escalated there, maybe beyond repair, right? Because, forget it. Especially if you're talking to a sheriff. If you're entering in violence and he's in violence, forget it. It's not, you're getting arrested, or shot. Something bad is happening. But, so, yeah, I feel like silence and violence do a dance together. I've experienced it personally, I think, in one of my relationships, where I feel like the person is attacking me. I feel violence for them. I retreat into silence. So, but this book wants to help people to say, okay, to acknowledge that, to kind of have some self-reflection and realize, okay, why, and then ask, why does this other person if they're retreating to one of these tactics, that means they don't feel safe, essentially. So, how can we restore safety to restore healthy dialogue? Because that's where we want to be at. So it says, in order to do this, assess if mutual purpose is at risk. So does the other party feel like you care about their goals, and do they trust your motives? And then also assess for mutual respect, which is, does the person believe that you respect them? So yeah, basically when those two things become damaged, then safety is at risk. So when mutual purpose is at risk, we end up in a debate trying to win. Defensiveness occurs, accusations, and hidden agendas. Then it says signs that mutual respect is at risk is people defending their dignity, becoming highly emotionally charged. Emotions go from fear to anger, and pouting. So we could see in that video, maybe I was going to say maybe I could use that video as an example, but in that video, the sheriff, yeah, he definitely went into anger pretty quick. And I think with police officers, probably feeling like that mutual respect is at risk is a major thing for them, I would say. Because if they don't feel respected, right? Say, because they're perceiving that you're not doing what you're told, as that you don't respect them. So therefore, they get into anger. They're going to defend that. So yeah, then you have name calling, yelling, and threats, which yelling and threats were in that video too. If you don't do this, I'm going to arrest you, right? Making threats. He's trying to defend his dignity, thinks, his respect is at risk. So, I wouldn't know the first thing right now about how to go about, in that situation, when somebody is overcoming you and they want you out, I don't know if a healthy dialogue could be restored in that moment in time. But anyways, moving on. So some tools for restoration. So once the conversation has gotten to this point where you're seeing these signs, you want to stop. Step out of the content of the conversation and assess, right? And so they go through these tools for restoration. So one of the tools is apology. So apologize when appropriate. When you've made a mistake that has hurt others, start with an apology. An apology is a statement that sincerely expresses your sorrow for your role in causing, or at least not preventing, pain or difficulty to others. And then the next tool that one could use is contrast. And you would use contrast in order to fix a misunderstanding. And they make sure to point out that contrasting is not apologizing. It says, sometimes others feel disrespected during crucial conversations, even though we haven't done anything disrespectful. Sure, there are times when respect gets violated because we behave in clearly hurtful ways. This is kind of like with the sheriff. Like, nothing disrespectful happened to him, but he probably felt disrespected. But nothing was done to him that was disrespectful. It says, you can start by innocently sharing your views, but the other person believes your intention is to beat him or her up or coerce him into accepting your opinion. Clearly, an apology is not appropriate in these circumstances. It would be disingenuous to admit you were wrong when you weren't. How then can you rebuild mutual purpose or mutual respect in order to make it safe to get back into dialogue? When others misinterpret either your purpose or intent, step out of the argument and rebuild safety by using a skill called contrasting. Contrasting is a do or don't statement. So it addresses the other person's concerns that you don't respect, the other person's concerns that you don't respect them, or that you have a malicious purpose. And it confirms your respect or clarifies your real purpose. So maybe like in the case with the sheriff, it could be said, let's see, the last thing I want to do is, let me see here, is communicate that I don't respect your authority that you have. Let me think here for a second. So, or you say the last thing I want to do is to, because the sheriff was obviously concerned, he said, I don't make the rules. I take the orders, I follow them, and I give them off, right? I follow the rules. So I would say, like, I don't want to put your job at risk or make you feel disrespected, but what I do want to do is either attend my hearing, or can you please let me know what else I can do since I cannot wear a mask. Like, and I'm not by any means critiquing that situation or the person in that situation, not by any means. I'm just like kind of brainstorming this stuff for myself because, you know, I would just wonder. But I don't know if in that moment in time it would even make a difference, because the sheriff was so adamant as soon as the woman walked through the door. Like, he was just like, boom, you know. And a part of me wonders, I don't know if any talking could have been done there, because he just wanted her out, you know. So anyways, so contrasting,
2,000 years later.
So, so it's one thing if people can find a mutual goal, but in cases where it seems like both parties want two different things, it says, when we find ourselves at an impasse, it's because we're asking for one thing and the other person is asking for something else. We think we'll never find a way out because we equate what we're asking for with what we want. In truth, what we're asking for is the strategy we're suggesting to get what we want. We confuse wants or purposes with strategies. That's the problem. For example, I come home from work and say that I want to go to a movie. You say that you want to stay home and relax, and so we debate movie, TV, movie, read, etc. We figure we'll never be able to resolve our differences because going out and staying home are incompatible. In such circumstances, we can break the impasse by asking the others, why do you want that? In this case, why do you want to stay home? Well, the other person says, because I'm tired of running around and dealing with the hassle of the city. So you want peace and quiet. Mostly, and why do you want to go to a movie? And the other person says, so I can spend time with you away from the kids. Before you can agree on a mutual purpose, you must know what people's real purposes are. So step out of the content of the conversation, which is generally focused on strategies, and explore the purposes behind them. When you do this, new options become possible. When you release your grip on your strategy and focus on your real purpose, you open up the possibility of finding new alternatives that can serve mutual purpose. You want peace and quiet, and I want time with you away from the kids. So if we can come up with something that is quiet in a way, we'll both be happy. Is that right? Absolutely. What if we were to take a drive up to the canyon? So, there you go. So, yeah, that was... Okay, I'm sorry. I forgot this one part. That was under... So the next tool after contrasting is called CRIB. They use this acronym. So CRIB, to get to a mutual purpose. The one I just read now is the C under CRIB, which is commit to seek a mutual purpose. All right, so that's how you do that. But they say sometimes we find ourselves in the middle of a debate because we clearly have different purposes. Contrasting will not do the trick here because there's different purposes. So the first step, if you have different purposes, is committing to seeking a mutual purpose. And then recognizing the purpose behind the strategy, which is asking the why. And then inventing a mutual purpose. So, you know, like in the example, out of those whys, they figured out why they wanted to do those things. So then they created a new purpose. They figured out their purpose was to be in the quiet, you know, but each of them had different strategies to do that. And then after that, you brainstorm new strategies that could help both people accomplish that new mutual purpose that they've come to.